things that we must all work together in actually achieving the reform. It is not the work of the Minister of Finance alone or the Bank of South Sudan. It is our collective responsibility as citizens to work together to make sure that we have our economy improved.
Sounds of the Week on iRadio, your eye on South Sudan. Live from Juba, on air and online.
This is iRadio News.
Hello, good afternoon. This is iRadio News. First, here are the headlines. The National Parliament Finance Committee has reported that the Ministries of Petroleum, Roads and Bridges and Presidential Affairs have overspent their 2024-2025 budgets by thousands of percent. The Minister of General Education and Instruction has apologized to the public for the delay in releasing the 2025 P8 results. And Western diplomatic missions in South Sudan are calling for accountability following a deadly attack in Abiemnom County of Rohing administrative area that left at least 169 people dead on spot. These stories and more coming to you in this news bulletin with me, Lasuba Memo, and now the news in detail. The National Parliament Finance Committee has reported that the Ministries of Petroleum, Roads and Bridges and Presidential Affairs have overspent their 2024-2025 budgets by thousands of percent. Michael Ayuen Johnson, presenting a parliamentary committee report, said the Ministry of Petroleum overspent its budget by about 13,000%, while the Ministry of Roads and Bridges exceeded its allocation by around 7,000%. Other institutions also exceeded their allocations, including the Financial Intelligence Unit at 2,841% and the National Security Service at 1,000%. He explains.
The committee recorded few instances of such cases as follows. Agencies which have overspent beyond the approved fiscal year 2020 approved budget of 2024-2025, just to mention but few, we have Ministry of Petroleum that overspent by 13,000%. Ministry of Roads and Roads and Bridges overspent by 7,000%. Ministry of Presidential Affairs overspent by 5,000%. Financial Intelligence Unit, FIU, overspent by 2,841%, and National Security Service at 1,000%, respectively. The table is attached.
Michael Ayuen said the overspending was extremely concerning and violates the country's Public Finance Management Act. He further highlighted that some institutions spend only a tiny fraction of the allocated funds, leaving essential projects underfunded. He criticized the Ministry of Finance and Planning for failing to provide expenditure reports for states and administrative areas.
In the committee's analysis, we established that some spending agencies overspent their budgets greatly, which breached the PFMA Act, while others were malnourished or underspent. In addition, the Ministry of Finance and Planning failed to provide outturn report figures of 2024-2025 for the states and administrative areas.
Meanwhile, the lawmakers questioned why civil servants and security forces were not paid despite the Ministry of Finance collecting 1.7 trillion South Sudan pound more than budgeted in the 2024-2025 budget. Michael Ayuen, the chairperson of the Committee on Finance and Planning in Parliament, said the Minister of Finance did not disclose the actual revenue collected in 2024-2025 during his budget speech. Ayuen said the committee found that the ministry collected about 1.7 trillion more than what was planned. He said this raises questions about why the salaries for civil servants and armed forces were not paid. Ayuen made the remarks yesterday during the second reading of the 2025-2026 budget.
The committee observed that South Sudan embassies abroad have been shut down due to the lack of payment of rental arrears, and that some embassies and diplomats were evicted by court orders. For example, in the UK, France, Italy, and an African Union, to mention only but few. The situation is grave, with some of these embassies operating online. In France, the default payment of the court's order has resulted in a daily fine of $2,000 until the entire payment is made. From the same table, the Minister of Finance and Planning Budget speech before the TNL failed to mention the actual revenue outturn report of financial year 2024-25. The committee established that what was collected by the Ministry of Finance and Planning in the same period exceeded the budgeted forecast by SSP 1.7 trillion. That makes 75%. The question is why the Ministry of Finance is unable to pay wages and salaries to civil servants and organized force. Why? I hope the Minister of Finance is taking note. Why?
The Finance Committee says the failure to pay salaries raises serious concern about government financial management and transparency. The Minister of General Education and Instruction has apologized to the public for the delay in releasing the 2025 primary aid results. Dr. Kuyok Abol Kuyok made the remarks during an ongoing event in Juba where the results were expected to be announced later today. The announcement comes days after President Salva Kiir last week directed Dr. Kuyok to release the results of the end of primary education examinations known as the Certificate of Primary Education. A total of 84,506 pupils, including 45,427 boys and 39,079 girls, sat for the examinations in November last year. According to Dr. Kuyok, 96.4% of the candidates passed the CPE.
From the outset, I would like to profoundly apologize to the candidates and the families for the delay. You all remember, we opened the schools on the 2nd of February. And last year, on this podium, I promised that the results will not be delayed. And we are now 1 month behind the schedule. So for that, I want to apologize for the candidates and the families for the delay in releasing the results. We are establishing a system. Appears to be hard. Nevertheless, I undertake that we will put this right. However,
this is iRadio News. The peace monitoring body, RJMEC, has condemned the killings in Abiemnom County of Ruang administrative area and called for an urgent investigation and accountability. On Monday, authorities in Ruang administrative area said nearly 170 people were killed, while more than 68 others were injured following a deadly attack in Abiemnom County over the weekend. Among those killed were the Commissioner of Warpinch County and the Executive Director of Abiemnom County. In a statement seen by iRadio, the reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission said these acts of violation undermine efforts to restore lasting peace and stability and worsen the already dire humanitarian situation in the country. The body called for an immediate cessation of hostilities, the de-escalation of tensions, and the prevention of further violence. It also urged the urgent commencement of an inclusive political dialogue. The statement partially reads, and I quote, RJMEC condemns in the strongest possible terms these heinous acts of violence which undermine efforts to restore lasting peace and stability and further compound the already dire humanitarian situation in the country. Such wanton attacks against civilians and public officials are occurring amid escalating hostilities and armed clashes involving some signatory parties to the revitalized agreement on the resolution of the conflict in the Republic of South Sudan and their affiliates, which continue to erode peace and public confidence across the country. The Commission urged the ceasefire monitoring body to undertake a prompt, comprehensive and impartial investigation to establish the full circumstances surrounding the attack. RJMEC also appealed to humanitarian agencies and relevant stakeholders to scale up support to the affected population. Meanwhile, Western diplomatic missions in South Sudan are calling for accountability following a deadly attack in Mayom County of the Ruang administrative area that left at least 169 people dead. In a joint statement this morning, the European Union delegation and the embassies of Canada, France, Germany, Ireland, Japan, the Netherlands, Norway, Switzerland, The United Kingdom and the United States condemned the March 1st assault and demanded that those responsible face justice. The mission said they were appalled by the scale of the violence, which reportedly killed civilians, including women and children. According to earlier reporting by iRadio, heavily armed attackers stormed parts of Abiamnom in the early hours of Sunday, killing scores of civilians, local officials, and members of security forces. The victims reportedly included the county commissioner and other senior local authorities. The diplomatic missions also urged South Sudanese leaders to work together to restore stability and prevent further violence. The attack is among the deadliest incidents reported in the Rohing area in recent years, amid recurring insecurity involving armed youth and intercommunal violence. This is iRadio News. The Speaker of the National Parliament, Nuno Kumba, has announced that 2 members of the Legislative Assembly have passed away recently. The first lawmaker was identified as Deng Chol Deng, an elected member of parliament under the SPLM party from Rank, Upper Nile State. The second was Hassan Zaid, representing SPLM Ayo from Western Bahr El Ghazal State, who passed away last Saturday. Speaker Kumba extended condolences to the bereaved families of the late MPs.
Before we proceed, I would like to acknowledge and pay tribute to 2 members we have lost during this budget session, starting with Honorable Deng Chol Deng, elected member, SPLM from Rain, Northern Upper Nile, and Honorable Hassan Zaid from SPLM Ayo, Western Bahr El Ghazal State. Wow, he passed away last Saturday. This is the information we got this morning. So on behalf of the National Legislature, I would like to convey our sincere condolences on the passing on of the 2 members, both of whom passed away all during my absence. The Deng Chol passed away when I was not here, and now Honorable Hassan. We just got the information this morning. For this, may we all stand up and pray 1 minute silence in there.
This is iRadio News, and now to the international scene. Here is James Satem.
Thank you, Lasuba Memo. Beginning in the region, Ivory Coast, the world's leading cacao producer, on Wednesday cut the price paid to its growers by nearly 60%, the government said, to try to address a sales slump affecting the sector. Agriculture Minister Bruno Corne announced the reduction to 1,200 francs a kilo, which comes amid a fall in world cacao prices and an oversupply crisis. The sector accounts for 14% of the West African country's gross domestic product, and around 5 million people depend on it for their living. Elsewhere, the death toll from a landslide at a mining site in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has passed 200, the government said Wednesday. A shaft collapsed at the country's largest coltan mine in the rebel-controlled east on Tuesday, witnesses told AFP, with an initial toll of 6 dead. Rubaya mining site lies about 70 kilometers west of Goma, capital of North Kivu province, which is under the control of the Rwanda-backed armed group M23. And finally, a torpedo fired by a U.S. submarine sank an Iranian warship off the coast of Sri Lanka, whose navy said Wednesday it recovered 87 bodies and rescued 32 people. The Iranian vessel sank in the Indian Ocean, was the Islamic Republic's prize chief, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said. It was one of the few instances of a submarine sinking a warship since World War II. The sinking of the IRIS Dana illustrates a U.S.-Israeli military operation against Iran that is stretching beyond its borders. U.S. President Donald Trump said one of the key objectives of the war is to wipe out Iran's navy. And that's the end of the regional and international news with me, James Satem. Now back to you, Lasuba Memo, in the studio.
Thanks, James Satem. And now to the world of sports. Here is Francis Mukhtar.
Thanks, Lasuba Memo. In our sport news today, the South Sudan Premier League delivered another exciting round of matches in round 19, with several key results affecting the title race and the battle to avoid relegation. One of the most notable fixtures saw Holy Family FC secure an important 2-1 victory over Al Ghazala WOW on 4th of March. The win strengthens Holy Family's push for a top 3 finish and keeps them firmly in the title conversation. Despite the loss, Al Ghazala WOW remain mid-table but continue to struggle with consistency after a run of mixed results. The draw between Al Marikh Bantu and Al Qatar FC was particularly important as both clubs are among the league's top contenders. At the bottom of the table, Lion Hunters remain last with just 5 points, while Bantu City FC and Al Hilal WOW are also fighting to avoid relegation. With only a few rounds left before the season concludes in April, El Marikh Bantu remain in control of the title race. However, Jammus SSC and Qatar FC are still within striking distance, while Holy Family FC continue to apply pressure from 4th place. The coming weeks promise intense competition as South Sudan's top club battle for the Premier League crown. In the latest matches in the English Premier League, Arsenal FC strengthened their title push with a 1-0 victory over Brighton and Hove Albion. Chelsea FC produced an impressive performance to beat Aston Villa 4-1 away from home. Manchester City were held to a 2-2 draw by Nottingham Forest, missing a chance to close the gap at the top. Newcastle United defeated Manchester United 2-1 in a dramatic match at St James Park, and West Ham United also secured a 1-0 win against Fulham FC. Meanwhile, Tottenham Hotspur are set to face Crystal Palace in the next fixture. Lastly, in tennis, top players are preparing for the upcoming Indian Wells Open, one of the biggest tournaments outside the Grand Slams. In motorsport, drivers are also getting ready for the opening race of the Formula One season at the Australian Grand Prix. And by this, I have come to the end of the sport news in iRadio. Back to you, Lasuba Memo in the studio. I am Francis Mukhtar.
Thank you, Francis Mukhtar. This is iRadio News, and to end this bulletin, here's a recap of the headlines. The National Parliament Finance Committee has reported that the Ministries of Petroleum, Roads and Bridges and Presidential Affairs have overspent their 2024-2025 budgets by thousands of percent. The Minister of General Education and Instruction has apologized to the public for the delay in releasing the 2025 primary aid results. And Western diplomatic missions in South Sudan are calling for accountability following a deadly attack in Abiemnom County of Ruweng administrative area that left at least 169 people dead. That's the end of iRadio Afternoon News. If there is a story or an event you'd like iRadio to cover or report about, please send us a text message at +211 925 287 It's also a WhatsApp number. Follow us on X at iRadio Juba, like our Facebook page iRadio, subscribe to our YouTube channel at iRadio South Sudan. You can also visit our website and listen to us online at www.iradio.org. Stay tuned for news in Arabic at our past hour.